let's do that. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the March 6th Board of Elections meeting to order. Hopefully, we expect this to be a pretty short meeting. We're reviewing some findings and we need to certify the candidates and review some notices. You want to take it away, Jessica?
I can share what we received from the Ethics Commission. So the Ethics Commission met last night. They obviously met on the 27th. There were a couple of things that needed, very, very minor things that needed to be revised on two candidates packets. That has been done now. They went ahead and reviewed everybody's packet, and so they are all sufficient at this point. So that just clears the way for the board to take their next steps. So just wanted to present that to the board.
Looks good.
Yeah, I think it all looks good as well. I guess the only thing at this point is I think we're going to need a motion or motions to certify the candidates and to direct me to send a letter on the board's behalf. And so I'm thinking those are the next steps on the agenda, if you will.
Yep. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the candidates, or do we think we should start with the letter first?
Let's approve them first.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So we're approving the candidates the Ethics Commission approved and moved forward, and the ones that we approved and moved forward, and only the intersection of those two, right?
Correct. The middle of the Venn diagram.
Yeah, so you're certifying the candidates that have met your requirements or met the requirements with the petition and with the request to be added to the ballot. And then the Ethics Commission has reported that everyone that has submitted a candidate packet has met their requirements for the financial disclosure statements. So
Right. So the first step is to review the Ethics Commission's findings, which are for all candidates, regardless of whether they met our,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
And
So
that's what Jessica just put up on the screen.
okay. So moved.
Yeah. So what did you move?
I move that we accept the findings of the Ethics Commission.
Okay. Anyone second?
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think the next thing we need to do is to confirm the people who met our the petition's requirements. And does somebody want to have that motion? There are the candidates listed so we can see which ones. I think we can do one for all of the people who met the requirements.
I'll move to certify all of the folks who met both the Ethics Commission and the petition requirements.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I moved a little slowly. Terry, you made the motion, and then who seconded that?
I did. Kate did.
Kate did. Okay.
And then our last piece of business is asking empowering Jessica to send this letter to Mr. Suraj. I'm not gonna hit Suraj, and telling him that his petitions were not sufficient. The little background: the letter is a letter that we have used in the past. We tried to add some language that talked about write-in ballots. Kate reviewed some materials. It went to our lawyer, and our lawyer said, no, I think the original letter is better because there's some ambiguity with write-in candidates. So we're going to send out, we'd like to send this particular letter. Can somebody say there's a motion to,
Sorry, before we do
Mhm.
the motion, I was still unclear from
Yep.
the email thread about what the eligibility or what the avenues are
Yep.
for write-in candidates.
And
I was unclear what they are, and then also unclear why we wouldn't still communicate those to him.
the reason that you think they're unclear is because they are unclear. And that's the reason that we can't really communicate them to him, because they are not, there's pieces missing. And so in the code and charter, it doesn't specifically say what to do as far as write-in ballots, and it's only in the elections manual. But there is some language in the code and charter, but it only refers to if no one has no one is actually running for that position. So if it's an empty seat. So there's some material there, but not enough to make it
To clarify.
it. And so
So is the operating theory that write-in candidates are only eligible or only allowed if there is no one running for that seat?
No.
No.
Let's just go through this real quick
Yeah.
exercise.
Sorry, I was really
No.
trying to follow the
Right.
thread.
No,
and I
no.
just wasn't
No,
following
you're
the
right.
logic.
So let's go with this exercise first. So
Yep.
where the direction comes from on the how we conduct elections is charter, code, and the election manual. And so when we go to the charter, can you see my screen? You can see I've already got write-in up here. So I've searched for write-in, no references to write-ins in the charter. So we went to the next step, which is the code, and we looked for write-ins. Actually, they're right here on the screen. Obviously, I've looked at this a few times. So it's only listed in two places. One is underneath the section that's candidates to file petition and fee. So it's related to the filing of the petition and the fee. And the last sentence is any qualified person elected to the town office by write-in vote shall pay the same fee as if they had filed a petition. So that just addresses the fee. Going down to 2913, the title of the section is placing names on the ballots, removal, and when. So those are the three pieces. Section A is fine. Basically just says that you have to go through the petition process and then you'll be added to the ballot unless rendered necessary by disqualification or death of a candidate named thereon. So B talks about disqualification or death of an only candidate on the ballot. And then it says, in the event that no candidate files, there may be a write-in. So it's unclear to the way we read it is that in the case there is a disqualification or a death, certainly you would have a write-in. If there was no candidate, you would certainly have a write-in. So those were the only places in the code that it talked about. So it seems a little ambiguous. It can be read in multiple ways in letter B. But if you go to the election manual, where we have all of the very specific rules, and remember this is from 1995, so it's like typewritten and kind of hard to find, but they have very specific information on write-ins. And let me see here if
It's not even a searchable PDF. That's how old it
it's
is.
not. I know it's.
I know. I had the same trouble.
Jessica, if you send it to me, I can potentially make it into a searchable document and send it
Oh,
back to you.
sure. Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
There is a section that talks about write-ins. Here we go. Number 7, other ballots and write-ins. So it makes it very clear that write-ins are supposed to be part of the ballots. It says, the rules on the write-in vote are applicable to voting machines, ballots, as well as to paper ballots. Ballots other than those printed by the judges and marked officials shall not be cast or counted in any election. This subsection shall not prevent any voter from writing on his ballot and marking in the proper place the name of any person other than those already printed for whom he may desire to vote. I will point out that's he throughout this whole document. Such votes shall be counted on the same as if the name of such person had been printed upon the ballot and marked by the voter. So that's very clear that write-ins are intended. But it's just not in the code and the charter. And our job is to give, we would point to the code or the charter by having to like give our opinion on it. It seems as if we are giving legal advice or advising a candidate. And that's what the discussion with the town attorney was the other day. What day was it? The 5th, 4th or 5th.
Okay.
I spoke with him.
So beyond the ambiguity, he's also saying that by telling the candidate that he can do a write-in, we are giving him advice, and that is outside of our purview as the Board of Elections.
But what happens if he does write run a write-in campaign?
He can
Oh.
do that.
Yeah, he can do that. We just can't tell him he can do that.
It's not
He
that
can
we
do that even though it's not in the charter or the code that it's allowed?
Yeah.
So let me go back to the other piece of this, Heather, that might help. So at the very end of the section of the town code, it talks about the election manual. So the Board of Elections and judges of elections shall be guided by, but are not bound by, the provisions and procedures set forth in the Riverdale Park election manual and in conjunction with Article 5 of this charter in this chapter. So that is the link to all of those pieces. So it's not
Yeah,
just
because
the
it's
manual.
adopted by reference, we're okay. And that was the only part that I didn't find. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, no problem.
And then we have precedent. We've been counting write-ins.
We've had write-ins for years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we've been
that's
counting.
why I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
issue isn't that no one can write themselves or someone else in. It's that the Board of Elections cannot tell someone that they can do that.
Well, we don't have
Right,
I
no.
think we would be okay if we were pointing to a section of code or the charter and like section, XYZ says this, then we're not interpreting that section or anything. We're simply giving them the information, just like Kate had done initially. But she had cut out some different pieces and we had basically interpreted that. So I think if we had just what we're doing in this letter is we're reporting exactly what we found. And then at that point, we were kind of interpreting the code in a way that could be seen as us giving advice or legal advice.
I think I just still don't understand why we can't point to the election manual. That's a public document, yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's 100% a public document.
So if the charter and the code they don't explicitly prohibit it, which is why we can count write-in votes. They just don't proactively
Explicitly
allow
say.
for it or instruct on it, right?
Right.
And so that's why the election manual is there as a reference to like bolster
Right.
anything unclear or missing from the charter and the code. If the election manual is also a public document, I don't understand why we wouldn't point to the election manual and say, and here is the section of the public document, as long as that doesn't contradict the charter or the code. If it contradicted, I would say absolutely not.
But it
But the
also
election
doesn't.
manual isn't code or law. It's
Right.
a reference document, which I think is the concern that the attorney raised. So we can reference it, but in a document like what we're going to be sending to this potential candidate, we need to be bound by code and law only in what we reference. Stick to the facts.
So if he were to respond to this letter and say, am I eligible to run a write-in campaign? What would we say to him?
We would say, based on the code and the charter and the election manual, anyone is eligible to run a write-in campaign.
Then why wouldn't we say that to begin with?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I'm not trying to be an asshole here. I
No.
really just
Yeah.
don't understand the logic.
No, it's a good point.
I spoke to the town attorney about this, and he recommended that we stay with what was written in 2019. I believe he wrote it, to be honest with you. And so that was the direction I did clearly ask, but we all are on the same page that write-in,
Yeah.
because it matters to us how we print the ballots, and that's the next step too. How does that work? With the ballots. And he's like, oh yeah, write-in. Of course you should have a line for write-ins. So I just think it had to do with the appearance of us giving some sort of legal advice, because even in this section where it says, write-ins, write-in ballots, and how you handle those votes, how the board is supposed to handle those votes, it doesn't also explicitly say there shall be write-in, an opportunity for write-in candidates. So I
Yeah,
think,
it presumes it. It doesn't
Yes.
yeah,
And that's
demand it.
all of these are presuming, it's gentleman's agreement and precedent, and we just kind of go along and no one's put it explicitly. And I think that the lawyer is being cautious, especially in our current environment, to reference only things that we have as specifically approved through the government process. And what this has obviously shown us is that this is yet something else we get to fix. We're going to need to create.
Yeah, I mean,
something. Yeah.
I understand the town attorney's job is to be
Yep.
conservative on interpreting the literal meaning of words on a page.
yeah.
I just don't understand it. If we were to eventually, if the candidate asked another question, if we were to eventually say, yes, here is the information in the election manual about this, I'm unclear why we wouldn't offer that to begin with. It feels like hiding the ball a little bit in a way that feels odd.
I've got to say that we do not want to be in a position where we are even at any kind of blush offering legal advice. That is a very, very bad position to be in. It opens us and the town up to a ton of liability and risk that we do not want to put on our heads or on the town's heads.
I think maybe it's two different issues is how I would think about it, Heather, is that this is an issue about whether his petition to run it was valid or not. And it isn't. So maybe that's what we need to stick to in the letter, right? And so that's the framework I'm going to put on it. And if anybody in the town writes another letter saying, what are my other options? Then we would respond with, here are all the other options, here are your options to participate. But I think it's kind of, it muddies the waters when we say, because when we start saying, here are some other ways that you can continue to participate. We're not saying, oh, you can also apply for a job in the town. You can also volunteer at a local elementary school. We're not saying any of those other things. So because we're just speaking to one specific way that he can participate with the town, I think that's where the discomfort comes from.
I'm with Heather. I don't like this, but I don't know. I feel like our hands are tied because we haven't done it before, which is a terrible reason. And I think maybe
what about putting something out on the website or in the town crier that's to
we
anybody?
might be able to do that.
That
Well, I was going to
says,
say, we should at very least, we should draft an information note that we can send to people who decide they want to run a write-in candidacy that they would like to do that. I don't know if that's a good answer or not.
I think it's the first time that we've necessarily run into this issue. I mean, it's obviously not the first time, but
Well, it's the first time we read closely, and then I almost the top of my head almost flew off when I read the part about you can't run unless nobody else is.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that literally and that with nothing else to it, it does look like that's the only way that you can run. But the obviously the election manual provides
the precedent is to be able to do it, right?
Yep.
So it's not
I think
That's what I'm having a hard time squaring. Terry, I understand the legal pieces. Jessica, I understand the like where the town attorney is coming from. I'm not going to follow my sword on this. It feels like if the election manual is communicating an intention, then I'm not a literalist, originalist interpreter of legal documents. And so I'm trying to square those,
Yeah.
like all three of these documents. That's where I'm like, they just don't square.
They don't square, and a heck of a lot of the election manual just is completely out of date. It's all talking about paper ballots and the wooden box that you stick the paper ballots in and all of that stuff. So it's it to me it's the least current of all of the things that we're referring to. And you know, it's one of those where I think we can use it to support our actions, but we can't use it as proof of our actions. Do you I don't know.
No, it's 100% part of, I mean, it's referenced in the code. This is part of our process and procedures. We have, if you recall, during COVID, the section of code related to the election manual here, 2924, was amended because the procedures that are in the election manual are very old. We don't have the kinds of machines anymore that these procedures are referencing. So this should still guide us. This is not far off from the general procedure that we follow, but it's not exactly because it's so old and our process has changed. I understand what you're saying, Heather, and I also understand what Kate's is saying, and Terry, you know, that's the advice that we were given from the attorney. I would love to just go right in and insert a section of code, but we've already started the election process, and this is not the time to make those kinds of changes. So I think after the election, we do need to go through, obviously update the election manual for, you know, modern times, but also clarify certain things. This is only the second time that this has come up that I'm aware of, and the time that we've been doing this. Last time around, we had no candidates for one ward. We went ahead and we did the same research we did now. And of course, because there is nobody listed there, it fits nice and neatly right into the code. But this doesn't necessarily fit nice and neatly. But it could happen at any time because we've always had the line where a write-in candidate could be. Most of the time it's used for Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, you know, the mayor's wife occasionally, or, you know, random people. But I mean, there is a possibility that, you know, somebody could win, and we don't really have anything other than what's in the election manual on how we count those votes. So I think it's clear in the manual, you know, and we did get very clear direction from the town attorney. Yes, I mean, has to be a spot on the ballot for write-ins. It seems to be very clear, but there's just nothing that we can point to in the code it's as clear as mud from the charter and the code perspective. So I think that the one thing that we need to, I guess, understand is the role of the board as it relates to candidates in general, because I think the desire is to have the most inclusive process, right? To have like more voters, more candidates, like you want to see that, but it's a real hard, it's a delicate balance, I guess, with the board's role related to candidates. Like our focus is on process and procedure and making sure that we do everything that is noted in the charter code and the election manual as is practicable. But I think that's I do see other sides of that. So that might be something we can talk to the mayor and council about after the election, and how we want to, this is a new entity. This is a very brand new entity. So there may be other areas that we can expand into. And again, I'm using the royal we. I mean you as the board, but
Right. No, yeah.
we as the process.
Heather, what would you like us to be able to do?
Again, I'm not going to follow my sword on this.
No, I'm
So
just
if we,
trying to,
you know,
Yeah.
if we need to move, like, you know, it's already 7. If we need to move, that's fine. I think that I would like to um given the 3 documents that we have that serve as our guidance, legal guidance and like executable guidance for the election. If there is conflict between those documents, I would like to use the widest possible interpretation of those like not like writing more into it, not interpreting beyond what's there. But if the 3 are in conflict, I would like to defer to the broadest of those 3 rather than the most constrictive of those 3.
And I think that's
And
exactly
like
what we're doing.
again,
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I understand how the town attorney is looking at the most constrictive of those 3. That's his job, but that's not my job.
I feel like it's not that it's even a broad or narrow interpretation of it. There is nothing written at all in any of them about the details of right and ballot. I mean, there's bits here and here and here. It's like having 4 corners of a puzzle, but not the middle. And there's a it refers to exceptions, but not the rule. And so it's hard to point to the
Yep.
rule, and we're implying the rule by the exceptions. And I think that's the discomfort, and I'm actually
Yeah,
yeah.
and if y'all feel like because there isn't enough substance there, if we only have the 4 corners of the puzzle, and in order to like actually map the puzzle, we have to interpret the other pieces. I get that like our job is not interpreting charter or code or manual. So like again,
Okay.
I'm happy to stand down on it. I get that our job is not interpretation, it is execution. We just have a bad manual to execute off of.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I think that one of the things that's on my list going forward is dispensing with petitions altogether. I don't think we need them. And I have on my list of things I'm going to do when they shut us all down, is to get in touch with other municipalities and see what I can learn about how common it is for petitions even to be a part of the process. Because to me, that what I'm seeing in the impediment that I'm seeing here is that it's really, really hard in some corners of this town to get those petitions in an orderly way. And that shouldn't be a barrier in my way of thinking. You should be able to pay your fee, fill out the ethics. I think the ethics stuff is more important actually than the petitions. Fill that stuff out, pay your $25 and be put on the ballot. We're not that big.
So I think that requires a public discussion and a
That's
process.
way
and all
long.
that.
That is
Yeah.
way long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I
talking
know.
about starting the research.
I think
Yeah.
that's great, Kate. Like, I mean, I think we don't know the gaps exist until we run into situations like
Well, that's part of
this,
the
and
problem.
we're kind of, and again, you run into these situations where we have this gap.
Right.
And so, when we dealt with this before, like I said, in the past, obviously in 2019, we had something similar in 2023. This was not brought up as an issue, but now it has been. So we have guidance in the election manual that indicates that there should be write-ins, but there's no prohibition against, but there's no guidance or direction for. So we'll clean that up. But more and more, I think we've learned that time between one election and another is really, really short.
Boy, oh boy.
And so, we focused on the timeline before, and that was kind of the easiest piece. But coming into this after this election, we really have some other things that we need to clean up. I know that Kate and Sarah have the manual or some manual potentially from College Park. We've seen some things from Hyattsville. It helps to see what other jurisdictions are doing and how that works. But there's just not time right now to do that part or change the code.
What does the board feel about someone out in their personal, um, just a second, I need to shut the door. Somebody's yelling.
If Sarah's question was if someone from the board in their personal capacity reaching out to the candidate, I actually think that's dicey.
Okay. I'm just
Oh,
trying,
Kate, you're muted.
I'm not muted anymore. You can't hear me?
No, I was muted.
Oh,
If the
okay.
question is whether someone in her personal capacity from the board could reach out to a candidate and say, you know, you can run it, like, I would say no, absolutely not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing as personal capacity.
And so then if we don't feel comfortable doing that, then maybe that's the same thing as doing it in the letter? I don't know. In any case, maybe we can put something in, when we announce the I think it would behoove us to put something about write-in candidates in the town crier and on the website and things, because we also have no one in the role running for Ward 5.
Oh, I wouldn't say because we have nobody running. No,
Yeah.
what I would say is that if we're going to do that, we
Yeah.
can say
Yep.
anyone who wants to
Yes.
can run a write-in. And I don't know if we're allowed to do that, if the board is allowed to do that, or if the editor of the newsletter is allowed to do that, or
Yeah.
the webmaster or webmistress or web one is
Yeah.
allowed to do that. I don't know. And I think we ought to be really, really, really careful
Okay.
about keeping a
Yep.
hard line
Yep.
between.
Jessica, can you see what the town lawyer thinks about us putting in when we a notice in when we with the candidates that are running, and then along with those information about how about write-in candidate.
The other thing I wanted to mention just in general, so the election notices, the ones that we did, if you remember at the very beginning of the process, I'm about to show you the notice for candidates. They have had no revisions to like format or to content. The only change we've made has been to indicate early voting. And in both cases, there was never anything included about write-ins. So I just wonder if that was intentional or I don't know. But I did want to share that when I went through and looked at the notice, and let me pull that up real quick.
Can we vote on the letter before we move on to other
Yes,
documents?
sorry.
Yeah, can we get a
Are
motion?
we okay with the letter the way it is? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's pull it up again one more time so everyone can look at the letter and, remark that we did receive the legal guidance that this was
Yep.
what was recommended here. Okay.
If someone could make a motion to approve Jessica sending this out.
I'll move.
Okay. Can someone second?
Second.
Okay. Can we vote on whether we should send this out? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you.
Do we have all in favor? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It was good discussion. Thank you, Heather.
I do think this is really why the board is here. This is a huge part of what we need to figure out in the future about how we make this even playing field, bring as many people in as possible. And that's not just voters, which is always our goal, but it's also participants in the election. So that's a really, really important discussion. Okay, and so let me go to the notice. So this is the notice that has been here since I've been with the town. I don't know how
Oh,
old it is. I mean,
you were
maybe.
you were playing kickball on the play. You were a gleam in your daddy's eye when
That
this
happens.
was first like this.
And so the only line I've added to this here is the early voting to stand out. And so updating the dates, just make sure all the 2025s are there. This is the same format it has been forever. In 2023, we had the same text, no candidate in Ward 5. And then I think that was really the only other thing that was added probably maybe 2 elections ago was the ballot drop box language, because that's relatively new too.
And we're 100% sure that we have the spelling of all these candidates names correct.
Well, I would like somebody else to take a look at that.
Okay. Well, I cross-checked it just now with the letter from the ethics board.
So
But
I sent you the link, everybody, the link to the Board
oh,
of
yes.
Elections drop.
Oh, the materials are in there. I'll check.
Yeah, so we have a folder in there that's all of the packets that were submitted.
Okay. Okay. I'll double check. If there's a mistake, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But if not, we'll just assume that this is okay for now.
So the process of how this will go out, go ahead, Heather, I'm sorry.
Well, no, go ahead, Jessica.
No, I was just going to say that this would be posted on the website tomorrow. It would be posted on the bulletin board at Town Hall. I think back in the day, it used to be taped to the door, but you can't get to the doors now. And then the notice itself will be printed on large paper in English and in Spanish, and it'll be posted in each ward. I think 2 in each ward. And so that will be done probably early next week. But also there's no mechanism that has been developed for notifying the candidates that they are candidates. It's always been that you look for this list, and that might be something in the future that we want to change.
Yeah.
That's why I mention it.
I just want to clarify. So the candidates only find out that they've made it based on this announcement, not an email or letter we send. Okay.
And I think that came up when you started talking about it on the 27th when you were reviewing packets. So I'm not sure. The memo that you got from the board, the Ethics Commission, is something that's just been created also to create that documentation from one entity to the next. So, I mean, we certainly could come up with, language if you wanted to. I don't know. Timing is a little tight right now, but we could do that. If you wanted to do letters, that would just simply be the same type of thing, the same type of language that was in the letter that you just approved, just saying that you've met the requirements.
Can we do that? Do you want me to write something? I got a thing I need to finish tonight. But if I can find 20 minutes tomorrow, do you want me to send you something? Would that be? I just think it would be a nicer thing, just
And
to
I
be
agree.
kind.
And I think we treat everybody who submits a packet the same.
Yeah.
So if you don't make it, you get a letter. If you make it, you get a letter.
Yeah.
So
Right.
have some consistency in how we follow up if
Right.
you say something formally. And
Yep.
so that just seems
Yep. And,
right
and
to me.
the only language would need to be changed is you have met the requirements. And from the other letter, correct?
Well, I think
Right.
there might just need to be a couple of changes, but if the board directs that a letter also be sent to the candidates that have met the requirements, I think that that's a sufficient enough motion that we can work on the language, like amongst ourselves, right? Like, so we could put together some language Kate will give us, and then it can be approved because it'll be the same language, just a modifying of the language that is in the first letter that you all have already approved.
Jessica, I
And
would
would we
actually
still
like,
post this, though, the announcements tomorrow on as scheduled, and work on the letter letters to follow.
Yeah, I think everything that we do should remain the same. And Jessica, I would actually I wouldn't have it be like a motion that candidates who are approved to get a letter is that like all candidates will receive all petitioners will receive a letter notifying them of their eligibility or non-eligibility to enter into the race formally. Something like that. So it talks about the like from phase to phase, there's consistency.
If, Jared, do you want to make that motion?
Let me get it ready to
Okay.
take it. Just go ahead.
Sure. I move that we send letters to all petitioners for candidacy.
Let's call them applicants, not petitioners, because petitioners sign the petitions. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Applicants for candidacy in Riverdale Park.
Somebody
Okay.
want to second it? Oh,
Second.
Heather. Yep, okay. And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Uh,
Aye.
I think that's really good. I like it.
So then, okay, so that might push this out to Monday when we post these things because everything will go out at the same time, and I think that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
yeah, and we are doing stuff, sending stuff on Fridays is
Bad practice.
Yes.
bad precedent. Yes, thank you.
Does
Thank
anyone
you.
have any objections to that all happening on Monday?
I think it's better to have it all happen on the same time. Yeah.
Without objection.
So I think
Will
what we- go ahead.
Will the
Heather.
qualified candidate names go up on the website tomorrow, though?
No, I'm not going to put anything up until Monday. Everything would happen at the same time.
No, I think that's good. I would rather us mail first and then post. Just because that's better.
The applicants.
I don't want anybody to
knowing-
find out. I think that for the candidate who is not confirmed to run, it is unfair for the first thing to be no candidate.
But then we're not
Throughout the
posting,
email.
but then we're not posting the notice until days after the letters go out because the mail.
No, we're not
mail.
gonna send the letters until, the letters are ready, and once the letters are ready and going, then we post the notice. Is that right?
And the letters can be delivered by mail, but also through email as well, can't they?
Right.
So we can email the candidates and post the stuff online and post the stuff in town, and at the same time put a letter and in the
Physical mail, right.
that-
Is that okay?
Is that okay? Does that sound
A
okay?
lot. So we're waiting until Monday to do all notification, regardless of how it's going, will go on Monday. So
Yeah.
post in public spaces, email / letters.
Is that,
That sound okay?
Remember, it'll take time to get, it might be the actual notices in each ward will take some time to be printed and posted and all that stuff. But the ones
right,
at town hall will be posted and the ones online, the
Okay.
emails will go out on Monday and then the letters will be sent the same day. And I
you.
think that's good practice just to follow up with the hard copy anyways. Anyone have any concerns? Terry, are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
The only it isn't about a sequencing. The only question that I have, Jessica, is how big, like what's the size of these notices that'll be posted?
So so the ones that initially went out, I think were like letter size, and then when I kind of drove by and saw it, it seemed to be hard to see. So we're gonna do 11 by 17, like the
I was gonna say,
sign, and
yeah.
just have them up. I think that was our regular practice. I'm not sure why
Yes.
we didn't get onto the larger paper, but we will have those up.
Right, telephone pole size.
And so remember, this will be the cover of the April town crier. So this is exactly what's going to be on the crier. And it'll be obviously in Spanish on the other side. And we'll have English and Spanish like poster sides. size notices.
Do we,
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
one thing I would like is if we can talk to the town attorney about how we can, if we can, and where we can and how, and if we can, how we can post material about writing candidates somewhere that
Yeah.
is for public consumption.
I can talk to the town attorney about that. He's not available tonight, or I would have had him come to talk with the board, because that's completely fine too. I'll talk with him and send an email around just with what he says. If not, we can try to get him on the 19th to come to our regular meeting.
It would be really nice if we were able to get a Ward 5 candidate write-in thing. That would be nice.
Well, I think that's the next thing I think we all want to look at very closely, and that is all in the Dropbox link. You know, we have the charter, code, election manuals all in there. It's not updated from the charter amendments that we've made. I haven't gotten to that part yet, but all of it's in there. I think it's important to look at what will happen, or what should happen, or what the process is if we don't have any candidate in Ward 5 that gets 15 votes. So we really need to be real clear on that. That might mean a special election, which is a real tough thing after we've already gone through this process. It's pretty exhausting. And yeah, so just make sure, just read through that, feel familiar, feel comfortable. If you don't see anything, or you have specific questions, make sure you send them to me, and I can send them right along to the town attorney, and we can get some direction on how to move forward.
Can I just ask one more question about this notice? So, or two more questions, or two requests. First request is, if it's possible to make it any bigger than 11 by 17, that would be great. Even 11 by 17 is still small when
Very
you're
small.
like driving or walking or biking or whatever. And then second request is, if there is any way to put it on some color of paper other than white, so that it is like people notice that it's a thing that they should look at. That would also be awesome.
Would you be upset if it was, or anybody, I'm talking about the entire board, be upset if it was like on a neon color, like that just stands out like it doesn't look super, super professional, but it is, I mean, it's easy to read.
no, I'm
I'm a
from
little on the
DC. The go-go look is good.
Heather, how do
I'm
you-
a little on the fence about whether people will take it seriously if it's
Okay.
on, but
Yeah,
Other
I
than white is clear.
something where it is just something other than white, that it just fades in the background and nobody's gonna pay any attention to it.
I'm
go ahead.
just in favor of high contrasts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we pick some color that is not white, I would honestly be in favor of a like neon green or neon yellow, because that guarantees that your standard ink printer colors are
Right.
high contrast with it.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's see what they have at, so
Okay.
we are now using waterproof paper for the notices on the on the board. So let's find out what colors are available. Color other
Okay.
than white is clear enough. And we'll work on that. We also have our electronic signs. Even right now, it's still, I may still be running the candidate filing deadline. So we need to get that up to date, and that'll be town election and early voting. And that's really the next messaging that we have is register to vote. And these are the 2 dates when voting will happen, and also yard signs and things like that. So this is not the only place people will get information about the election.
The other
Right.
thing about this to draw attention to it is if you can do a color, like a border that's bright. If you can't do it on something other than white, if you could do, something other than to call it out. The concern about doing a different color paper is sometimes that it makes it harder for people to read, especially if they have difficulty seeing.
Yeah, hence my concern about high contrast.
Right.
Well, we will work on that. It'll be dependent on what's available in the
Sure.
water paper.
Do we need to approve this? Or are we okay?
Well, I mean, we could do a motion to approve, but I think Kate is gonna still double check the spelling to make sure.
Right.
Invite everybody.
Approval pending a check.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have checked, I did check
Did
them.
you?
Because that's
Good for
very
you.
important to me as well, particularly
Good.
because someone emailed me just this morning. I'm like, you emailed me and you spelled my name wrong. You had to type
Oh.
in my email. But
Did you check them already?
Yep, yeah, they're all, from
Okay,
what the
so,
packets were submitted in the Dropbox, they're all,
Good to
they all
go.
look good.
Great.
so,
Okay.
do we want a motion to approve this announcement?
I move that we approve this announcement.
We get a second?
Second,
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Look at us kicking things out.
So
All right. So we've got plenty of stuff to do between now and Monday. Hang on one second. I've got too many things going here. Stop share. Okay. Okay, so we've got plenty to do before Monday. So we'll have all of that prepared. And just like I've been sending updates, like you'll know before everything is updated or before anything's posted. So I'll do the same thing with updates.
okay.
The next big thing is going to be the ballots, approving the ballots and approving the language for the absentee mail-in envelopes. That's already in the Dropbox. The absentee mail-in envelopes information is there. The ballots will come. I think I can go ahead and send this notice to the printer so that they can do the proofs.
Start
That's what I'm
sending.
hoping you guys will look at on the 19th, approve those ballots and everything. And then we should be good to go.
Are we gonna have a, somebody go through the absentee ballot process, following our instructions to make sure that our instructions make sense? Because I know Kate and I did
Please.
some of that, so,
You know what's great? This.
yeah. Okay,
So you do
I
have.
wish we could do that.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So looking at the agenda, was there anything else that we needed to cover tonight? I don't think so. Let me share it real quick.
The next meeting is on the 19th, right?
So
For
we'll
those
meet
of us
again
keeping
on
score,
March
huh?
the 19th. And we'll do our regular business as far as like there's minutes to approve. All of those things we'll go through that like normal. These were specially
Okay.
scheduled meetings based on the needs that we had. I also would request that the board gives an update to the mayor and council at the March 24th work session. Mainly because we still don't have enough election judges. We did have one county. I did a email out to everybody who was a county election judge that lives in Riverdale Park. We got one, so that was really great. But we still need a couple more. I know, Heather, you're not going to be there on election day for sure. And so we definitely need at least one more alternate that will be actually an election judge. We also don't have all of our members of the Board of Election Appeals, which is really important too. I've done one initial outreach. I'll do another one. But if you could talk to your neighbors and just really, we're a lot of fun to hang out with. I will feed you all day on election day, like anything you want, we will make happen.
But no beer trucks.
No beer trucks, and I think the idea that I had to have a DJ may have been vetoed, so we won't have a DJ. We
Oh,
we
boy.
can talk.
So no dance party.
Well, and actually, you
All
can't
right.
even talk to me. I'm not even in there with you. So
Right,
I'm saying I
exactly.
deliver things to you and then leave. But
Right.
everybody else is a great group to work with. So whatever you need to just encourage folks to get involved.
Okay.
The Board of
I'm
Election
gonna-
Appeals doesn't meet unless there's an issue. So it's not a huge time commitment.
I am going to be on a plane on March 24th. So somebody else will need to do the announcement to the town council. And the mayor.
What time's the meeting?
7:30.
7:30. Oh, okay, I can do that.
Okay.
And
Thank
I'll
you.
prepare a cover memo and send it to you ahead of time to look at.
Okay,
So
Okay.
we can be on
thank you.
cover all those things. Okay,
Thank you.
you so much. I didn't think we would spend an hour, but there was a lot to talk about,
It's
and just,
okay.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
well worth it to have these conversations. So, thank you again.
I agree.
Have a
and
good
then-
night.
All right. Thanks, Jessica.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.